On July 18th, 2020, NASA launched a new vessel. 6 astronauts boarded Goliath 1 and set off to prepare the first human colony on the moon. The preparations were expected to take a year, but the vessel carried 6 months of additional food in case of emergency. Radio communication was possible only on the side of the moon facing the Earth, so the astronauts were told to stay in this area to maintain contact. The astronauts had landed on the eastern border of the Serenatus. This lunar mare was largely covered in basalt and held few craters, making it perfect for colonization. The goal of the astronauts was simple: map the area and blueprint the construction of buildings. The only real danger on the moon was meteors striking it, as it was devoid of any atmosphere. An electronic journal of the day's events was to be sent back to NASA, along with any interesting photos or videos, although it was to be seen if anything exciting would happen. It was the moon, after all. The first few months of journals were fairly normal. The astronauts were right on schedule with the predicted progress. They wasted no time to blueprint the area. Everything in a normal town was to be in the future town. A grocery store, a school, a hospital, among other things, of course. The supplies would be sent by other vessels. It wasn't their mission to actually build anything. Then on the 17th of September that year, the daily report did not come. It was speculated that it had been forgotten, but it did not come the next day either. Radio communication was not successful with the astronauts. Attempts were only met with static. The radio tower was seen as working perfectly. It seemed that the astronauts were simply not within range of it. Several missing videos were later discovered from the site. The following is a description of each video. The astronauts were told to label their videos by date, following with numbers if more than one video was recorded that day. The first video was labeled appropriately as September 16th, 2020. It's around 10 minutes long, and is mostly spent examining small craters close to the border of the mare. Near the end of the video, the astronaut talks about hearing scratching noises from the crater, but this wasn't audible in the video. The journal sent to NASA for the 16th of September did not mention this noise. The second video is also labeled appropriately as September 17th, 2020. This video is roughly the same length of the previous video and similarly focused around craters, specifically the nearby Bessel crater. This one is an exceptionally large crater, over 9 miles across and a mile deep. The plan was to eventually build a bridge across it. The astronauts began to make notes of the crater when the scratching sound is heard again. This time, however, it is quite audible. It appears to be coming from the basin of the crater. The sound becomes so loud it begins to irritate the astronauts. One of the men looks down over the ridge to find the source of it. A force unseen by the camera suddenly pulls him into the crater. His screams are heard briefly before the footage is cut short. The third and final video is labeled Code 7700. Please help. The date is unknown, but it can be assumed it is probably from the next day. It begins with an astronaut in an oxygen tent talking to the camera. He explains in a calm voice that he has been unable to contact the radio. He also explains how 2 of the astronauts have been horrifically slaughtered. At this point, tears start to roll down his face, but he continues in a calm tone. The scratching noise from the previous video is heard suddenly and sharply. The camera is knocked to an adjacent wall of the tent, and we listen to the astronaut pleading, hollowing, followed by a heavy thump. The man continues to plead and cry for help, stating that he cannot breathe. The camera is completely turned away from him, so whatever is attacking him cannot be seen. We see blood begin to splatter the adjacent wall. The man begins screaming for help once more, and is now completely bawling. Blood splatters against the wall for a second time, alongside the sound of bones snapping and flesh being torn from them. His pleas for help suddenly stop, and are reduced to just inane screaming and crying. As blood spatters against the wall again, a bit of brown liquid now mixes in with this bright red liquid. The tearing sound has since been replaced with that of squishing and sloshing. The only sound the man makes now is a quiet death rattle. Suddenly he goes silent, and several of his organs are tossed near the direction of the wall. Coincidentally, the night of September 18th was a red moon. None of the bodies of the astronauts from Goliath 1 were ever fully recovered. Colonization of the moon has been postponed until further notice. The team sent to investigate the radio communication problems the astronauts were having refused to talk to the public. Of the 4-man repair team, 2 have committed suicide since returning to Earth. While the 3 videos were recovered, a photograph was also obtained. It is still unknown as to what it depicts. This is that photo. This story happened on the bleak night of November 14th, 1995, in Beijing, China. An old man, some say an old woman, was waiting at a bus stop at midnight, making conversation with the only other person at the stop, a quiet young gentleman. When the midnight bus 375, the last bus for Route 375 from the Wyoming bus terminus, finally came, they both boarded it. The old man took a seat near the front of the bus, while the young man sat a couple of rows behind him. There were no other passengers along with them, except for the driver and a female ticket collector. After a while, the driver spotted 2 shadows by the side of the road, waving at the bus. He stopped, and when the doors opened, 3 people got on. 2 men who were supporting a third between them, holding him up by his shoulders. The man in the middle looked disheveled, and his head was bowed so that nobody could see his face. There was a dismal, calm atmosphere inside the bus. Shortly after that, the old man picked a fight with the young man under some silly pretense of stealing his wallet. The altercation escalated, and the bus driver forced them both off the bus. When they got off and the bus zoomed away, the old man was no longer angry. He told the young man that he had saved their lives. Those 3 new passengers did not have feet. They were floating. They were not living people, he said. After that, they went to the nearest police station to report what had happened, but nobody believed them. The very next day, the bus company issued a statement. Last night, the final bus of Route 375 vanished, along with the driver and ticket collector. The police immediately chased down the old man and the young man, who were initially assumed to be mentally ill when they tried to report the incident earlier. They were both interviewed on the news. On the 3rd day, the police discovered the missing bus in a water reservoir about 100 kilometers away from its destination, Jingshan, or so-called Fragrant Hills. Inside the bus were 3 very badly decomposed corpses. The mysteries surrounding this finding included the fact that the bus did not have enough fuel to get that far after a whole day's worth of travel. The fact that the petrol tank was filled with fresh blood instead of fuel. The fact that the corpses found were too decomposed to have been there for just 48 hours. Even if it was the middle of summer, the process of decomposition could not be this quick. An autopsy confirmed that there had been no intentional meddling with the bodies. The fact that, even after the police went through all the security cameras set around the various entrances to the reservoir, they found nothing out of the ordinary. To this day, it remains an unsolved mystery. Tomino's Hell was written by Saijo Yaso for his 27th collection of poems, Sakin, or Gold Dust in English, in 1919. There is a Japanese legend surrounding it which states it should only be read with the mind, and never out loud. It's uncertain how this rumor started, but it goes on to say that tragic things will happen if you do. The story used to be very popular on 4chan. Many users said that nothing happened after reading it and uploaded pictures and videos as proof. There were also posts where the user did not come back to any results. If someone was going to read it aloud, they'd better do so in Japanese. This is that poem. Tomino's Hell. Elder sister vomits blood, younger sisters breathing fire, while sweet little Tomino just spits up the jewels. All alone does Tomino go falling into that hell, a hell of utter darkness without even flowers. Is Tomino's big sister the one who whips him? The purpose of the scourging hangs in his dark mind, lashing and thrashing him, but never quite shattering. One sure path to Avicii, the eternal hell. Into that blackest of hells guide him now. I pray to the golden sheep, to the nightingale. How much did he put in that leather pouch to prepare for his trek to the eternal hell? Spring is coming to the valley, to the wood, to the spiraling chasms of the blackest hell. The nightingale in her cage, the sheep aboard the wagon, and tears well up in the eyes of sweet little Tomino. Sing, O nightingale, in the vast misty forest. He screams, he only misses his little sister. His wailing desperation echoes throughout hell. A fox peony opens its golden petals. Down past the 7 mountains and 7 rivers of hell, the solitary journey of sweet little Tomino. If in this hell they be found, may they then come to me, please, those sharp spikes of punishment from Needle Mountain. Not just on some empty whim is flesh pierced with blood-red pins. They serve as hellish signposts for sweet little Tomino. Mommy, can I stay in your room tonight? The walls won't stop staring at me. I sigh and roll out of bed. There's nothing in your room. Go back to sleep. But they won't stop staring. Come on, I will take by the hand and guide him back to his room. Walls can't see, Will. They don't have eyes. Mine do. They do, and they keep looking at me. We crossed the threshold of his doorway, and I set him up on the bed. Pictures of family, past and present, are hung clustered around the room. See, look. Will points to one of the pictures across from his bed, a large portrait of his great-grandmother, long deceased. Due to the way the picture was taken, she seems to stare at whatever the picture faces, in this case, Will's bed. That's just an old picture. I can't change that it looks like she's staring. Can you take it down, please? I sigh. Sure. I reach to pull down the old portrait. Her eyes slowly lock with mine. She used to chew on her bottom lip a lot. I never worked out whether it was a nervous habit or some weird thing that she did in an effort to look cute. Regardless, that was her trademark. At first, it was little things. She'd scratch at her skin and continue to gnaw on her own lips until eventually rumors began to spread. I remember someone saying that she'd eat rocks just to chip off pieces of her teeth and eat them. I saw this all as something unnerving and horrifying to witness. Her mouth often bled while she talked, and soon she simply stopped saying anything. A girl would sit and chew on her fingernails and nod along with the conversation. I would have asked what it was all about, but I was a bit nervous about talking to someone who was only an acquaintance and addressing a problem that may be bigger than both of us. I was right about the problem being bigger than I thought. Usually when you're nervous, there's that part of you that's telling you it's all in your head and you should man up. I wish I didn't man up. I'd happily take staying at home and being a pussy than confronting her again. It was at a party that she broke down and said it was all the stress of her family and friends and school. I took her to my place thinking her family was abusing her. She wouldn't admit it, but I stupidly jumped to an extreme conclusion. Now I'm stuck. Whatever the girl is now, doesn't like her skin. She also doesn't like my skin. In fact, I'm pretty sure she doesn't like anything human. And now I don't. She kissed me in thanks, and now my flesh burns. I need to bite it off. It's not even tasty. It's horrid and thick. But that's all I can think about. The flames are in full force now. Glass is shattering from the heat generated by this inferno. Even the charred wood is beginning to splinter, unable to withstand the weight of the second and third floors above. You know, it is fires like these that made me want to become a fireman. To see raging death dance across the floors, walls, and ceilings is an incredibly beautiful and mystical sight. Don't you agree? With each person I pulled out of this burning tomb, I saw more and more flashes of cameras from my fans and admirers. It feels incredible to be loved and honored like a hero. It is intoxicating even. I cannot get enough of it. That's why I keep going into the jaws of death to save these irrelevant people. People like you. What they do not know is that I already know how the flame is going to spread. And I know where it is safe and where it is not. That's why I started the fire in the basement, in the living room, and in the downstairs bathroom. Unfortunately for you, I cannot pull you from this beautiful place. You are the last one in the building, besides me. My fans tend to question how dangerous fires like these can be if no one dies within them. That's why I must leave you here. My people must know how much danger I put myself in. The adoration is more sincere this way. You understand, don't you? Look, here is some advice for you, my friend. Inhale the smoke. Trust me when I say that it is better than the alternative. Okay, then. See you after the cinders die out. Thousands of years ago, the world as we know it was covered in dark, foreboding forests. Within these ancient forests lurked strange and frightening monsters, which would become the basis of most of the world's mythology, folklore, and fairy tales. Within these ancient forests hid man-eating beasts, vicious hags, and boogeymen of all shapes and sizes, all of which died long before the modern era. They exist only in the imagination of those who have kept the wisdom of their ancestors alive in song, dance, and written stories. Yet every now and then the ancient forests return, spiriting people away from their homes or work and trapping them within the twisting nether. These people are presumed missing by the world and rarely return, and even when they do, they are often without memory or means of identification. Within the ancient forest these souls walk endlessly, pursued by the many dark forces that lurk within. There is no reason behind these events, no purpose, no grander design. This perhaps is what is most frightening to the modern mind. The idea that even in our so-called age of reason, people can be taken away in the flash of an eye to a realm beyond our own. A realm which refuses to play by our limited notion of reality. You can never tell when it will occur, or who will be taken next. It is as random as death itself. No search party could find you, no priest or holy man could pray for you. Friends and family would be powerless. This is no fairy tale, but the fate of hundreds every day. How, you may ask, do you protect yourself? The answer is simple. You don't. Live every moment of every day as if it were your last. Find happiness in the smallest of things and do not be quick to anger, for this world is fleeting, and no one knows what awaits us when our time finally comes. Try this. Turn off the music. Turn off the TV. If you have to, turn off the computer. Then go into another room and sit in total silence. Do you hear that? That ringing? People say it's your brain making up a sound to explain the silence. And people lied. I can't tell you what is making that sound, but whatever it is, you don't want to meet it. It is trying to break through. Force its way onto our plane of existence. Now, try this. Repeat the first steps. Turn everything off. This time turn the lights off too. Do you still hear the ringing? You better hope so. If you don't, it's because they finally managed to break through and into your head, and no amount of running will save you. Have you ever woken up only to find there was someone staring at you? It happens to people all the time on trains, buses, planes, and in public places. In fact, studies have shown that this instinctive response is a highly evolved defense mechanism of the subconscious mind, alerting your senses to the presence of a potential threat. Many other species in the animal kingdom possess similar traits which prove beneficial to survival. Given this, you might want to consider quickly pulling your curtains closed and shutting your door the next time you instinctively wake up at 3 a.m. That is, of course, if he's not already inside of your room by then. Nights like these keep me up despite my fight. Death of my parents, my siblings, my beloved all keep me up until daylight. Miscarriages, violent suitors, my missing breast, all ritually haunt me like ghosts who are intent to molest. Being widowed and old is a special type of lonely. It's baneful with no children to look after me and one less wrinkle than is needed to rest me in a home. I have too many wits to show some old age syndrome. Alone I've been for years. Coming back home was my choice of fears. Now it's 3 a.m. and I have a visitor, out in the rain and dressed as a freed prisoner. Daily releases at the town's big house always worried me and my late spouse. Once comforted by the warmth of my husband, I find myself chilled by my reality, alone and unbastioned. Now he paces from window to window. Blank contemplation haunts the face of this fellow. My unease may be soothed by a call to the police. Can you please help? Someone is out in the rainfall. Stay on the line, ma'am. Help is on the way in 10 minutes. 10 minutes? 10 minutes? An hour would have given me equal hope. And now he has chosen his window and pulled out a rope. I must go get my gun. My intruder will soon see what will become of his bargain. Glass crackles like rain on my tiles, his head poking through, peeping eyes in riles. Shoulders now maneuver through the passageway. Get out of here. I will shoot you. Get out of my hallway. I close my eyes, and little two pops, my intruder slinks back into the raindrops. He stands outside, grabbing his arm. He stares back at me with eyes full of harm, and sees my silver sidearm. Pacing agitatedly, my intruder is in my front yard. He won't go away, and now he's going to the backyard. Stay calm, ma'am. Police are a short distance away. Please don't shoot again. We must keep them out of harm's way. I can't see him anymore. I think he's at the front door. No, please leave me alone. Police will be here for sure. There are too many ways in for me to secure them all. Out of sight and shadowed by nightfall. My intruder is now in control. My only salvation is with this pistol. A smashing in the back of the house sinks my heart. I rush to the scene, ready to defend, only to find I've been outsmart. He's in the house now, I whisper, draped in pall. Stay calm and hide to bide time. If you must, crawl. The pantry is too obvious and the kitchen is too open. I duck in the corner of cabinets next to the bar and basin. I'll see him make and turn and shoot him dead. His silence is as thick as lead. I hang up the phone to ensure my quiet, but why does it always have to beep with every digit? I feel the burn around my neck. The rope came from above. It's giving me gooseneck. My intruder lifts me up above the tabletop and over the bar. I feel my back snag the filled dish-drying rack, causing more than a scar. He loops the rope around my throat and betters his grip. He screams with rage as hard as he pulls the rope, causing my skin to unzip. Having lost my salvation, I'm past the point of fear and decide to stare at him. I've been through too much. I'm refusing to give him the satisfaction of my grim. As I feel my throat cave in, I hear the front door crashing in. Police, don't move. I have a gun pointed at your fucking chin. Hope and triumph have begun to be restored. I may actually live through this psychopath's bloody rancor. As my intruder eases on his clutch, I see the officer survey without recognition of the such. He looks me in the eye and gives me a reassuring grin. Backup is on the way, so your time is thin. You know you are going to die tonight for what you've created here, but before you do, I'll let you finish what we started here, he said with a sneer. My pride and strength melted away with this incarnation of dread. My intruder's malice fluttered in his eyes as he attempted to behead. He chomps down on my nose, paring it in cheek from mold bone. Blood begins to goggle my vacant attempts at breath and moan. My foe hero is aroused, fixated on my peril, gun pointed at my intruder, willing and able. One more primal tug of his garrote. My spine shatters, my flesh ruptures, and my hero's gun is shot. I really wish I had left that fucking light switch alone. Who would have thought the flick of a switch could mean the difference between life and death? Actually, everyone's thought of that. That's why I turned it on. Stupid little rituals that we take from childhood. The light will chase the monsters away. The blanket over your head will save you from the boogeyman. It seems like you just get more of these rituals as you get older. As long as you lock the doors and turn on the home security system, you can rest your head happily in your cozy little fortified home. No killers or psychos, monsters or boogeymen. But it doesn't work. None of it. We always slip up somehow. The one time you forget to lock that door, that's when they get you. I would have been sound asleep if I hadn't been woken by the loud slam as the front door blew open. I stumbled out of bed and down the hall to see it swinging back and forth. I moved quickly down the hall to secure it. A moment of panic swelled inside of me. My home felt like a crime scene. It wasn't my safe little sanctum anymore. Despite the overwhelming feeling of intrusion, there was no sign of disruption. Just the door, just my careless mistake. I couldn't comprehend it at first. It had to be a burglar or some psycho. I looked around the rest of the house, checking every cupboard, every crevice, but there was nothing. I felt stupid but relieved. Just wanted to get back to bed and forget this whole embarrassment. I flung myself back down on my bed, closed my eyes for just a second. I sat back up. There was no way I'd fall asleep unless I double-checked that I locked the door this time. I mean, I was sure I had done it this time, but I felt this was justified paranoia. I got to the door and twisted the handle roughly about a dozen times, each time feeling the resistance of the lock. I smiled. Safe. I turned on my heels to go back to bed, but it was just a glimpse, a flicker of something in my peripheral vision that sent me swinging back into a panic. A shadow from the kitchen. I rushed in only to be confronted by my normal kitchen, bathed in moonlight. I sighed, questioned my sanity, and decided that this, the longest night of my life, must end. I went towards the bedroom once more. Another odd shadow crossed my path. As a shiver traveled down my spine, my tired mind braced apathetic denial and decided that it was probably the neighbor's cat passing by the moonlit window. I sat wide awake in my bed, trying to lull myself to sleep. I tried counting in my head until I eventually nodded off, but every time I closed my eyes, that feeling of intrusion was still there. The hands of something unseen looming above my head. Every creak and every shadow filled my mind with the dread of my childhood. Those nights after being tucked in by my parents, those same fearful thoughts of lurking terrors. But it was nothing, right? More creaks, more movement in the shadows. I turned and pushed my face into the pillow. I felt something brush past my foot, which stuck awkwardly out from under my blanket. I jolted upright, looking deeply into the darkness. Swirling shadows, the monsters, the boogeymen. I felt around sheepishly for my phone. The dull light of the screen could put me at ease. Nothing on the nightstand, and when my fingers roamed around the edge of the bed, instinctively I retracted them for fear of the unknown. I was alone, but in the shadows I saw them. The monsters, the inky abominable beasts. It was the only thing I thought could help me. I lunged from the bed directly at the switch. My palm slammed down on it and the room erupted into light. My eyes burned momentarily and I glanced around the room. Empty. Safe. just paranoia. I shook my head and hit the switch once more, climbing into bed in the pitch black. No shadows without my night vision, but now I hear them. I can't see them now. I don't know what they want, but I know I can't leave. The rituals have failed. They're on the other side of this blanket, and all I can do now is hope that they're gone in the morning. Have you ever heard of the Golden Dilemma? There is a knife that is not a knife. It is a key. It is about 9 inches long with a golden blade. It has weaving blood channels along the shaft that seem to almost trace words, but no meaning has been found in them yet. The edge is keen, and it is said that in the right hands it can slice silence. Fitted to the base of the hilt is a cut and polished ruby. Despite the apparent size of the gemstone, it does not affect the weight of the blade. To hold the blade is to be possessed with a passion and vigor for life. Your confidence will tower over other men, and it will be impossible to find doubt in yourself. This artifact has been responsible for more crimes of passion than most realize, and most under its spell are often unaware, but all of this is merely a side effect of its true purpose. The blade is a key to any heart you desire, literally, to be eternally loved by the object of your desire. You must slip the blade between the ribs and through the heart muscle. The blade will not harm if this is performed correctly. However, the slightest mistake will render the injuries you are inflicting all too real, and the person will shuffle loose from this mortal coil. This is the choice you must face. Many would risk their own lives to be with who they love, but would they risk the lives of their beloved for the same reward? And would they even seek their permission?